First of all, let me just let you know, it's fully disclosed. Jesse's our insurance agent for our family. He was referred to us by another friend, and we are very lucky to have him. He's helped save us a lot of money. I can't promise that for everybody, right?
True.
But it's a very good chance that if you talk to him, you're going to learn a lot and have options you never had before. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great.
Dave,
Excellent. Yes.
we had a issue on Facebook for the audio.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to reintroduce Jesse, we're good now.
We're start all over.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, don't start all over.
I was gonna say not completely over, but you could reintroduce him.
So everybody, we have Jesse McDonald from Modern Insurance. My apologies for the little technical issue we had before on Facebook. He's a phenomenal insurance guy, very knowledgeable, very educated. He's been in the business for a couple of days.
29 years.
29 years.
Yes, I have to admit it.
I would call that quite a bit of knowledge and experience, and you've seen a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
Jesse, as I was mentioned before, is also my family's insurance agent. He's done wonders for our family, and grateful to have you in our lives. And thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Pleasure to be
So,
here.
so if you're out there and you have insurance and you're thinking about maybe finding out. He's like a therapist.
I can be.
Yeah.
We
All right.
We won't mention the Spotify part of things.
Can we mention that?
I think we should, as a special fun item, further into the show.
Okay, we'll talk
Okay.
about that.
Special surprise.
That sounds good. So Jesse, where are you from?
I went to high school at Bunnell High School, Stratford, Connecticut. So I'm from Connecticut, but as a child, my dad was a musician, so we moved around a lot. So I lived in LA for 5 or 6 years, 5 years, and lived in the Catskill Mountain area of New York.
Wow.
But ultimately, we always kept finding our way back to Connecticut, and I went all of my high school years in Stratford.
Wow.
I live in Milford now.
You mentioned your dad was a musician. That's
Yes.
pretty cool growing up with dad as a musician. It could have been difficult probably as he's running around.
He was broke,
Yeah.
and
So normal
and it was
musician
difficult.
That's where the phrase starving artist comes
Yeah,
from.
well, they always did a good job making sure we didn't realize how starving we could have been. So
Yeah.
we ate, and we got toys at Christmas, but it was rough go sometimes.
You know, it's funny. Back in the day when we were kids, because we're very close in age over
Yes.
here, I think it was very common to be poor as a family and not really know that you're poor as a kid. Because everybody around you was that same level of
That's right.
kind of poorness, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, nobody really had many more things than you did growing up.
Yeah.
That's how, I mean, I grew up as a kid and also very not wealthy, I'll say. You know, I didn't know how much we didn't have because everybody around us said the same thing. And just for that matter, people thought we were rich because we went to the movies on Sundays as a family. And I was like, I didn't understand what that meant. It's interesting, you know? Yeah, very much the same thing.
Going to McDonald's once a week was like a big deal.
Yeah, we used to go to Pizza Hut once a week. That was our
Pizza Hut was a big
Yes.
deal. That was an extra big deal.
Yeah, that was
Pan pizza.
Yeah,
Pizza Hut.
yeah, exactly.
Back in those days, you went to a Pizza Hut restaurant where they served you.
Yes, Pizza Hut pan pizza and a salad bar.
Yeah.
For $10, and we all ate for that $10.
You guys
Yeah.
are loaded.
Good. That's
We just went way back. And then you guys watching today.
Yeah.
we just
Generation
lost-
X special here.
We just lost half our viewers just now.
Yeah.
Some of them probably know.
No, definitely can relate to it. Let's see. So where'd you go to college?
I went to college at University of Miami, Florida.
Wow,
and
very cool.
And so Miami Hurricanes. And I went to UConn for grad school. Back to Connecticut again.
I'm gonna go back to the Hurricanes for a minute. The U.
Yes.
My
They
son.
won 2 national championships in 4 years I was there. So how's that for 50% of the years I was there? Won the national title.
My son works every one of those games. Did I say about that?
I don't know.
Yeah, Danny actually works for Hard Rock. Works the Dolphin games and the U games. He's on the field level now. And
Nice.
he always gets to watch the guys run out. He loves it.
That's great.
Thank you, fam. Sorry, it's just side
Oh,
note.
no.
So Miami, go ahead.
University of Miami, went back and then I went to grad school at UConn. So I kind of, once again, was out of Connecticut. Nothing against Connecticut. Back to Connecticut again.
Huskies are great. We love the Huskies.
Yeah, and so they ended up winning a national title in basketball, I think, while I was a grad student there. So I had a really good run.
You bring me some good
I
luck
was
over there.
bringing some good mojo for the national
Mojo,
title.
absolutely.
And then I just have been in Connecticut since then, in Milton, Stratford, and then eventually in Milford as of 2001.
Very nice, very nice. So, like, what was your major in college?
I was a political science major in college, and then went on to get my master's degree at UConn, which in political science is the track is you go get your PhD. But I wasn't sure I really wanted to be a college professor, and I didn't. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna step out of this and do something else, and that kind of led into this.
And that's the next question was, how'd you get into insurance?
So, 1995, I'm teaching tennis for money to survive a little bit.
I have a
Living my-
question. What, did you know about tennis?
I was
You played tennis.
yeah. I taught it. I was number one for my high school.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't an amazing player. I was a good player. I was a really good player, a pretty good player at not the greatest tennis school. So I was number one at a mediocre high school and did okay in the States. Didn't even make all state. I think I won my college intramural title at Miami. But I was good enough to teach and make a little extra money with that.
That's awesome.
And my grandmother, who I was living with at the time, I was in my mid-20s, and she's like, "You need health insurance." So a guy came over. This is back in the mid-90s. A guy came over with, all dressed up in a briefcase and old school used car salesman kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he knew I had no money, and he knew she was paying for it, so he didn't address me at all. He was only looking at her across the table, not me, even though it's my policy. And I thought to myself, I could do better at
Right.
than this guy.
Right.
It's like I thought to myself, and before he goes, I'm like, "You just drive around and tell people about how these policies work?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Note to self."
Look to self.
Okay. And then I saw an ad in the paper for being self-employed by selling benefit packages to other self-employed people, and that was a particular marketing company that I went on to work for as a captive agent in the mid to late 90s. And then by 2003, 2004, I broke off and became my own broker. But it all happened because I needed health insurance, and my grandmother insisted. I wasn't even thinking about it.
That's really cool.
Good thing she didn't need encyclopedias. You'd be selling encyclopedias right now.
But not anymore.
Perhaps. Maybe at that time, it would have been the tail end.
Right. Definitely. Very cool stuff. We got a handful of questions for Jesse over here. And again, if you're out there watching, paying attention, if you know Jesse, you want to give him a shout out, please do so. If you have any questions from him on the insurance level, again, don't feel uncomfortable asking. And again, if we miss anything or we miss questions as we make it in later, we'll follow the feed and we'll kind of get back to people as well.
Super.
Well, I have a question because what are the various categories of healthcare insurance? Because I didn't think there were very many categories.
Sure.
You know? I thought it was just like health family, health single, done. You know?
Yeah, so in the United States, we're a little different than other countries. Most other countries, really the government to some extent is involved in sort of the regulation of healthcare costs or even the insurance people have. In the mid 20th century, it was pretty locked in that America fell into this employer-sponsored model where even today most people have their health insurance from their employer. So the vast majority of health insurance is employer-based. We're good.
This is like amateur hour right now because the microphones weren't plugged in.
We ran them, they're just not plugged in.
But you can still hear the sound quality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
All right.
it's still being
So
recorded.
now
It's
it's
just,
even better. Now
Yes.
we're going to sing for
There you go.
In the mid 20th century, most of America was covered through their employer, not the government. There wasn't even Medicare yet. So you have, with health insurance, you have employer-sponsored coverage, which is still the main working model of this country, and that's what a lot of people want to see stay in place. Okay. Then you have various types of government insurance: Medicaid for lower income adults, and Medicare for people that reach age 65, and the government becomes their primary health insurance. And then for those that don't land in either of those buckets, either employer or some kind of a government program,
Like a realtor.
there is individual health insurance,
Right.
which is not through an employer. So when people hear individual, well, I need it for my family. Individual health insurance just means you're buying it on your own for yourself or your family. So those are the main three. And there's other government things like TRICARE. And government employees have their own kind of unique little subset of insurance, which is partially federal and partially private. But basically you've got employer-sponsored, some kind of a government program, or individual private health insurance. Individual health insurance, which is one of my main focuses.
So one of the things that you all out there who are watching, either you have insurance through a business, a company you work for,
Yep.
which is, let's just say 50% of people, I'm going to say at the rip.
Yeah,
And then you have the
probably.
people
Maybe
who
more.
are self-employed, own a business, you are in some kind of a field where you're not being offered insurance, and you struggle because you need insurance. And like, who and how are you getting insurance? What do you do? Are you just coming out of pocket for everything? And that can be very costly. And it's important, especially if you have kids, and
Yeah.
families. You really want to have insurance, and you really want to get to know about what options you have. No matter what age, if you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, yada, 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 each, I'll probably guess, age group has something different kind of being offered, more or less.
Well, the program, everybody's priced according to their age, but the plans are not. So if we're talking about if you're under 65, if you're anywhere from born to 65, you're going to have some kind of health insurance, either from an employer usually or on your own,
Yes.
the individual coverage. So the plans don't change by your age, but what's covered under them can be affected by age.
I'm going off a tangent by these questions I'm throwing at you. I apologize.
That's
So I'm
all
going
right.
to just kind of jump. We have some questions here that are okay, Eric. You
Well, I also with because of the question about the various
Categories.
So if someone says to you that they want to get into a plan, medical plan, let's say,
Yeah.
does that include eye to dentistry, all that other stuff?
So it's a great
Or is-
question,
Or
Eric.
it's compartmentalized, separated.
It's in reality they're separate products, but under the Affordable Care Act, which maybe we'll hit on in a moment in more detail, under the Affordable Care Act, pediatric dental and vision is built into health insurance. But when you're over, and that goes up to age 26 now.
Okay.
But when you are over age 26, some of the plans have a little bit of dental and a little bit of vision as kind of like
a la carte
enticements
items?
to
Okay.
get you to buy the package, but they're not full dental insurance. And vision insurance in general is not that extensive, even when you have it from an employer. Because if you have a medical problem of your eye, that your health insurance covers that anyway. So vision plans cover glasses once a year and an eye exam once a year.
Yeah.
So and very few medical plans have that built in. A few of them do. But it's usually its own product.
Well, what is individual health insurance?
So individual health insurance, it's probably going to hit on for a lot of your listeners, because real estate agents are a lot like insurance agents. We're 1099 income, we're self-employed, and
Yes.
usually your real estate brokerage doesn't offer it. And I think in some cases when they have it, it's not always very cost prohibitive.
They don't offer it.
There you go. So that's
Unless they don't offer it. It's like you kind of, you are who you are and you get what you want.
So people that don't get their insurance from an employer and they don't qualify for some government program because their income is really, really low, or because they're 65 already, you have to buy your own health insurance, hence individual health insurance. So that it's a product that is not, it's essentially not involving your employer, it's your own policy. And that's my primary focus.
Why is individual health insurance so relevant to real estate agents?
Because we're all self-employed and we need our own coverage, that's the only product that we can really get for
And it's a
ourselves.
very important piece of knowledge to know and understand and have and learn about. My wife Valerie is our insurance guru for our family.
Yes.
Who is how I met you, and
Right.
she deals directly. And it's like I have my things that I do, and then there's things that your significant other may handle. That
Always one person in the couple that handles the health insurance.
Right.
It just seems to be the way.
It's and it's good because she's much more knowledgeable than I am. I feel like I have marbles in my mouth as we're sitting here talking and asking you
do.
questions. Yeah.
Does the individual health insurance, has it gotten better like over the years?
So that's a great question, and it's a mixed bag. So I've been doing health insurance since the mid '90s, and some of the plans back then were very inexpensive, but they had lots of loopholes, and insurance companies could pick and choose whether they wanted to approve you at all, or they could say, well, we're going to approve you, but not your left arm, or not your bile duct, or your gallbladder.
Huh.
Or they could price you higher than someone else because they think you're more of a risk.
Right.
So there was all this medical underwriting. Well, it's not quotes; it's a thing. They had medical underwriting where they would decide whether, just like with life insurance, they would decide whether they want to offer you a policy and under what terms. But if you could get through that, the rates weren't bad. they were pretty decent pricing, but either people couldn't afford it or they couldn't get in. So from about 1995 to, let's say, around 2013, I spent half my time not getting someone health insurance because they couldn't pass this underwriting, or they couldn't afford the plans even if they could get through. And they all pretty much always had high deductibles. So it was always major medical.
Right.
But then the Affordable Care Act came along, changed the rules as to how health insurance have to function. It made it more affordable for some. It made the rates worse for others. But the thing that was probably made it simpler is everybody got approved. There's no one was going to get denied anymore. That's probably the main advantage to it. That's why that's sensitive with.
Yeah, I remember the phrase pre-existing
Pre-existing
conditions
conditions, yeah.
was like a big deal
It still is
in
like
the ACA.
they're all talking about don't get away with don't get rid of pre-existing conditions. That's the most popular part of Affordable Care Act
Because
is that
everybody has pre-existing.
Well,
Most
I mean,
people.
almost everybody.
Right.
It almost makes it sound as though, like, if the insurance company found out, this was back in the day, before ACA,
Yeah.
that if they found out you had a pre-existing condition or a condition, they could say, oh, we're dropping you.
Right.
Yes, because a lot of your listeners probably remember these days, if you had a health insurance pre-2014, you answered a very extensive medical questionnaire. Have you ever had this?
Half
this,
it were
this,
lies.
this?
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
They ask you all your whole body.
Right.
Sometimes it's your whole life. Sometimes it's the last 5 years. And if you didn't answer those questions, you accidentally forgot something or you purposely omitted it, they could do post-claim, I'm going to use quotes now, post-claim underwriting, where they would go back, get your medical records, see if you were being honest on the application, and then they could either not pay the claim or rescind the policy
No
outright.
kidding.
So ACA did kind of rid us of that worry of what your medical history was and having to like disclose it and maybe not get approved because of it. So it has simplified things to a degree.
I mean, it's definitely helped out a lot. It sounds like as far
Yeah,
as
that part.
as far as people in this country, and again, I can't think of anybody who doesn't have some kind of, because if you grew up as a kid and you had something, technically speaking, you've got a pre-existing something.
Almost everybody's had something,
Right.
They got pins and screws from an accident, and they got in their bone they have hardware,
Right.
Or they had a mild non-aggressive cancer, but it's technically malignant.
Right.
Things like
Or
that.
I had a
would-
concussion from sports or something
Yeah,
like that.
all of those things would do people in getting individual policies. So that's the part when the ACA started. It was like, finally, I don't have to ask medical questions anymore. It's like that's how it has been with group. When you get employer-sponsored coverage, you don't have to deal with that. So the individual market became more like the employer market, in that you just could automatically get the policy. But there's a catch. You can't just buy coverage when you want to.
Right.
You can only buy it at certain times of the year.
Which I learned and didn't know. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
Yes.
it's okay.
Or if you had a life-altering event, no?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's
So, like, if you
special
have a
events.
kid born in the middle of the year,
Yes.
they could be added to your insurance. Yes.
Yeah, there's what we call the open enrollment period, which runs November 1st to January 15th. But if you're outside that period, you lost your job. You lost your employer-sponsored benefits. You moved from North Carolina to Connecticut or vice versa. Things like that. If you have the birth of a child is a qualifying event. There is certain income drops that if your income drops below a certain threshold, certain products are available all year long if your income meets a certain guideline.
It's very interesting. And you mentioned about a child being born. I thought about your grandchildren being born recently and how that played a role into X, Y, and Z as he was talking about it. You know, Eric became a grandfather again.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got, is there somebody out there that had you? No. Okay. And it was something that as soon as you said that, did that come up in conversation by chance? How did that work out? No. Okay. Didn't want to get to personal. All right. So sidebar.
A divorce is another example, which is usually another example of losing your employer. The spouse that wasn't the one that had the job loses those benefits, and that's another window for people to come in.
That's interesting. So divorce also opens a window for one of the spouses to get insurance.
Yeah, because it's almost always the loss of some coverage because one of the spouses is the primary insured.
So that must happen a lot.
It does. In fact, I had some longtime clients today, just last minute got divorced and had to work out like getting the other spouse in her own plan. And
Does the new spouse end up with a more challenging situation because they haven't had their own insurance or
Sometimes, well, it can be emotionally and intellectually challenging if, first of all, you have a new situation on your hands, having to deal with something that maybe you didn't have to think about before. When
Right.
you have it from an employer, you don't really have to think about it a lot. It's out of your control.
right.
And let's say you're not the one that's even the employee. Now that's like gone, and you now have to figure out, what am I to do? How does this all work?
Right.
Right? And so in some cases, it can be challenging because now they have to figure out what's available. And as we'll probably get to in a moment, your income factors into individual health insurance in most cases. And so having to figure out what your income is, because that dictates how much the insurance costs per the ACA, which I might be jumping ahead of.
No, you're good.
And the county comes into play as well, right?
The what?
The county? The county you
where,
live in?
where you live, it does affect the rates,
Right.
not to the point where you would move to a different county because of it, but
Right.
it can play a small role. But with individual health insurance, if you buy your health insurance through your state marketplace, in Connecticut we have actually what's considered one of the better state marketplaces of all the states in the country. It's called Access Health CT. It's our Connecticut health insurance marketplace. If you get your health insurance through the marketplace, then if your income lands within certain ranges, the government gives you what are called premium tax credits, which directly lowers what are otherwise pretty high rates. Individual rates are high, but the tax credits bring those down, and how much tax credits you get is a function of a thing they call modified adjusted gross income. And your accountant is probably going to need to be, if you're looking into individual coverage, your accountant is going to probably need to be consulted. A lot of times I'm working with the accountant for someone to kind of make sure they understand how they're measuring
Where
their
they need
income.
to show their income
Right.
off the record, kind of, sort of, yada yada yada.
Well, in accounting terms, yes.
Right, in accounting terms, yes. Sorry, I shouldn't have kind of. Anyway, Eric, did you want to say something before I jump in over here? Okay. For individual health insurance plans, are there other insurance carriers to choose from besides Anthem, Blue Cross,
Sure.
Blue
so,
Shield, and Connecticut?
So one of the ACA brought about some good things, which is the no pre-existing conditions. The fact that you can't get turned down. There's no lifetime limits, lifetime or annual limits on the cost of things. There's no more 5 million limit. The cost can go into perpetuity, so you're not going to be under any financial risk. But one of the negatives to the ACA is the insurers are making less money. And so we only have 2 that offer it. So I know there's a sentiment that insurance companies are making billions of dollars, and they are, but within the individual health insurance world, a lot of the bigger players don't want to offer it in our state. Aetna doesn't, Cigna doesn't, United Healthcare doesn't, Humana doesn't. A lot of these publicly traded stocks that we all know, they don't offer policies. We only have Connecticut, we only have Anthem. You can get either of these 2 through Access Health or directly through the insurance company, and they offer some slightly different options, but the tax credits are then out the window. So for those that have a relatively higher income where they can't get the tax credits, some of them might choose to go directly to the insurance carrier, but those are the only 2. And if you have health insurance that isn't from an employer and it's individual, but it isn't those 2, you may not actually have health insurance,
Because the doctors
or it may not be legal.
Wow.
There's a lot of fraudulent stuff going on in the insurance, in the sales world of benefits.
It's so important for you to understand this kind of conversation. This is way above my pay grade for sure. Even in listening to you and understanding what you're saying, there's so many dynamics and levels to it.
There's a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts over here, just like that. And people really need to get to know you and speak to you. Thane, by the way, is there a phone number on the screen over here to get in touch with Jesse? And the number they should be calling is the 203-882-9805. So if you need health insurance, you have any question about health insurance, if you have an insurance situation that may be changing or you maybe want to change, you definitely want to get a hold of Jesse. He's very smart. He's been experienced 29 years in the business.
29 years, man.
That's like a long time in insurance. You've seen a lot of changes.
Yes. I've seen all the different changes in
He
this
just
market.
pretty much outlined it based on pre-ACA and post-ACA.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
ACA was probably just a huge tipping point.
Mid '90s to 2013, it was all that first model of the insurance carriers could decide if they want to accept you or not and on what terms. But the rates are pretty good because they can pick and choose the healthy people.
Right.
And the products, some of them are Connecticut's been a pretty good state for having reasonable insurance laws. So a lot of the products were safe and pretty good. I think Connecticut plans had a bad, Connecticut got lumped in with other individual insurance states that have really bad reputations of allowing a lot of shenanigans to go on. But
Do the quality of insurance or the pricing vary from state to state?
it does
Are there states that are like way better?
There are states that are better, but some of those states have really much lower costs of living. So Connecticut rates are among the higher because we're also a state that has a lot of mandates. So in Connecticut, infertility is mandated. Applied behavioral analysis for autistic children. There's there's a lot of mandates that our state sets up where insurers have to cover extra things that in some states they don't. It does drive up the cost of it, but it also means we have more protections in our plans. So it's a bit of a mixed bag there. But the rates are high, and it is a problem, and there isn't any real solution to it other than the tax credits. So it's a tricky situation.
We talked about this a little bit, but what about dental and vision coverage? Does individual health insurance include that?
Yeah, so some of them include a little bit of it. For kids under age 26 that are on their parents' plan, there is pediatric dental and vision that's mandated under ACA. So that's just built into all
Which is a
medical plans.
great thing,
It is a good thing.
especially the kids.
Not always a lot of dentists are in them.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a challenge there. But for adults, if you need dental is its own thing. Dental doesn't have that compressed enrollment period, though. There's really good private dental plans. Delta Dental, United Healthcare has a couple of decent ones that have come out. There's many of those carriers. That's always around, and that's something that I can help my clients look into. But dental insurance is complicated. It has a lot of restrictions. It's not subject to ACA, so the insurers can kind of design plans the way they feel like it, and you have to figure out whether it's worth it or not.
So you had mentioned that not all the pediatric dentists are in. So does that mean, is that where the term, like somebody will come up and say, well, they're not in network?
Yes.
Okay.
Health insurance doesn't work well if you don't stay in network. If you go out of network, the deductibles are usually high, and the insurance carriers are only counting, like, take my policy. I have a $16,000 out of network deductible. Okay, so that's high. But even as they start accumulating towards it, the insurers don't count what's actually being billed for me to reach my $16,000. They count what they think is allowable to go to the deductible. So not only is it hard to get to such a high deductible if you go out of network, they're only counting portions of the charges, so you really never get anywhere. Out of network doesn't work well. There isn't really any plan that.
You're better to stay in the network and get the doctor.
Practically speaking, yeah. A lot of people go out of network for their behavioral health, and that's people come like, I use a lot of out of network therapy. I'm like, well, that's going to be out of your pocket because it's very hard to get to a $10,000 to $16,000 deductible when the insurer is only counting what they want to, what they consider to be an allowable expense.
Yeah, I had somebody at the gym tell me that their daughter, who was out of state attending school, was sent to a physician, and it ended up being that the doctor was out of network.
Yep.
But the referral came from the doctor who was in network. So why
That's
would they
strange.
refer them to a person who was out of network?
Because I think
so then they get hit with a cost, and they're like, "Whoa, no, I'm not doing this."
Because I don't think the referring doctor is looking to see who's in someone's insurance.
Right.
And that's the thing. I do want to clarify one thing on the Connecticut and Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. Those insurance companies I've been working with for about 20 years, they are very reliable. So I feel like as Connecticut residents, even though we only have two, and it's like there's only two, these two have been very solid. And I know you may have listeners that have had issues with any one or the other anecdotally, but as an overall trend, I'm glad that we have two really well functioning companies.
I will say, I will speak on behalf of having Connecticut. When I've had to call them for, like when I had my surgery, and I wanted to understand. I should have probably just called you. Probably it would have been a bit smarter.
Always call me.
But I know.
Text me or call
But
me.
I call up. So what happened? I wanted to find out what's going to cost me for this whole experience, like this whole surgery.
Yeah, definitely call me in the future.
Oops. But I got a hold of, so I spoke to the doctor's office, and then I spoke to, like, you should call your insurance company. I called the insurance company, and there were nice people on the phone, but I didn't understand maybe what was being, and I didn't think to call
No
you.
offense to the personnel at some of the customer service lines. They're juggling, they're not licensed insurance
Right.
brokers.
Right. So
they're-
how much information can they really share with me? It's knowledgeable.
they have to juggle understanding how a lot of different plans work, and mistakes can be accidentally made.
Yeah.
What they tell you.
So, and the thing was, what's it going to cost me for the surgery? I want to know, because one of the things was when you have, the doctor said to me, "We'll find out from your insurance about if you can go to a." I went to a surgical center
Yeah,
versus
there-
the hospital.
There is some incentives to do procedures in certain places.
Yes.
You get a little bit of a reduction in the
Yeah.
out of pocket. It's
Yeah.
not earth shattering, but
Yeah.
on your particular plan, but it can be helpful.
I should definitely call you again. You know, it's one of
Call
those-
me with that stuff.
and this is where you should learn from my mistake.
Talk,
Like
if you have a broker, talk to your broker when you have questions on
insurance,
your
how-
plan
yeah.
that they helped you get.
Don't call the insurance company. Call Jesse. Jesse's your liaison. Who's gonna first it'll be easier to get a hold of, and number one, number two, more on your side to make sure you understand things, and number three, you're gonna get the information you really need to know.
But yeah, broker is advocating for the client, not the insurance company. That's a little bit of a difference with an insurance.
So if
agent.
somebody gets a plan with, let's say, a different broker,
Yeah.
and they're watching the podcast, and they like what they hear and all this other stuff, and they say, you know what, I want to give Jesse a call. If they decide they're going to stay with the current plan, can you still be that oversight for them
I can't if
in the
if-
future, or how does that
If
work
someone's
out?
unsatisfied with their existing broker, or they don't have a broker,
Mhm.
and they would like to have someone to talk to, you can assign the broker at no cost to you, and
Good question.
you can just there's ways to assign me as the broker depending on whether you have your health insurance through Access Health CT or whether you bought it directly from the insurance carrier. There's
Gotcha.
different procedures, but that's something that I can take on someone. Like, there's only one more week left in open enrollment. Many of your listeners have already made their decisions, and rightfully so, because it's almost the end. But if someone has questions on needing someone to contact during the year for something like your coverage question, or you have a lab bill that's not being paid.
Mhm.
Sometimes stuff happens where you should only have a 25 copay, but you're getting billed $400. Something went wrong. The
Oh,
broker can
Sometimes
do
they can
that.
do with the wrong code.
Yes, wrong code.
Yeah,
Yep.
they write the wrong code down, and
It
you
was
know,
preventive, but they wrote it down like it wasn't preventive, things
Yep.
like that. Another thing that brokers can help with, and something that I help my clients with, is when you have your health insurance through Access Health CT, there's a lot of things going on. Not just your income, but sometimes they want you to prove your income. How do
Mhm.
you handle that? Sometimes they want you to prove that you've filed certain tax returns. There's all these different requirements and verifications that can sometimes come around that I help my clients understand how to comply with requests that might come throughout the year.
I'm trying to think about. I know not a lot of time left because we're running very quickly, and we're gonna have to be back on the show. I hope you don't mind doing that.
I'm happy to come back.
Because I know it's going to get more questions are going to come at us. Why
Yeah.
didn't we ask this? Why didn't we ask this? Of course, they're going to call you directly, but
And
you know,
next time we'll have them just prior to the enrollment period instead of right at the end of it.
Right.
or no, but just
Like
So-
probably October is a
Yeah.
good one, but no, but it's
you were busy though.
that's true. I
were-
I was very busy.
I
when you
had to
first
get
brought this
Jesse.
up.
Hold on, I called Jesse 4 months ago. I said, "Listen, I can't talk to you till
Was it
January."
4 months ago?
I don't know. Maybe it was a few months. It was no, it's a couple months ago. Whatever it was though, it was a few months ago. You're like, I'm jammed right now. We're
I'm pretty slammed.
Yeah, and I respect. Listen, so when you say in October, I'm like, is October really good? We're gonna have you maybe in a few more months to come back on.
Sure.
Because I think
Yeah.
it's a conversation whether someone may. Again, there's so many people out there without insurance. There are so many people out there without insurance.
If you're out there without insurance, even if it's not through me, go to accesshealthct.com. That's the best place. You're going to find your most cost-effective options. If you want to go directly to the insurance carrier, there's a few other options you can look at, but the pricing gets a lot higher. But there's about 8 days left
So let me ask you a question. After
if you don't
it's
have
eight-
qualifying events.
So if in 8 days from now, so January, what was that?
January 15th at midnight, like
So-
all the way through the 15th day is the end of open enrollment.
So what happens come February if someone doesn't have insurance?
So you're talking about they don't have a qualifying event. They didn't just get divorced. They didn't lose their employer plan. You're talking about someone's like, you know what? I should think about this sometime.
I just
You
haven't
should
had
try this.
insurance. Blah blah blah.
They're
You know what? I
they're
saw the
really
podcast.
they're out of luck.
Really?
They would need to get it from an employer. Some of my self-employed clients that do that call me out of the blue. There is a way for them in where they can form a small group plan where it's, let's say it's you and one other full-time employee. that you can create a small group around, and that is something that can be done at any
Interesting.
time. But you need to be a business owner with either a partner. You have to attest that you're working 30 hours a week in your business entity, and you have at least one other person that isn't a spouse be full time in the company with you, so that you can form a group on that basis most of the time.
Interesting. So come after January 15th.
You got to wait till the next fall to enroll for the next January 1st.
If you don't have any insurance whatsoever. If you have insurance,
If you have health insurance that you just don't love and you want to change it, you're stuck there too. Like, this is the open enrollment is your chance to pick what you want to do for the whole next calendar year, assess what you think your income is going to be. What a lot of your listeners should know is, I'm sure some of you listening are getting a premium tax credit, which lowers your health insurance cost, but it's based on what you think you're going to make this year, not what you've made in the past.
let me ask you a question, because they extended the ability to do your taxes until February. Did you know that?
For the first quarterly.
Because of what happened with the hurricane, tornado in Connecticut that happened, they extended your ability to do your taxes until February something.
Because it's April 15th is the income tax for everybody. You're talking about for those of us self-employed to do our quarterlies?
I'm talking about doing your taxes for 2023 or 4, whatever would be the last
Because
one.
we're all about to do our 24s.
I'm
I thought it's just, I
100%
thought April 15 is
no,
usual.
no, it's and the reason I know that is because I still do my taxes, and I
Okay.
called up my accountant because usually I do them like end of year because it just seems to be where I'm stressed
Right.
out, and
Sure.
and he's like, all right, he's like, I called him up, he's like, you're okay. He's like, they extended it in the state of Connecticut until February.
Okay.
Do your taxes. I wonder if there's any space on the
Probably
insurance.
No.
I'm gonna get, it's two separate entities.
Yeah, he's right.
I tried.
Tried. He's totally correct.
Good to
It
know. All
happens
right.
now and then.
We have more questions. We'll get those another time. But I do want to let you all know a little bit about Jesse, a little sidebar. Jesse's also a musician,
Singer,
singer, songwriter,
Yes.
guitarist,
lyricist.
lyricist. He just dropped his first track,
Yes.
which I happened to catch on Spotify. Sound Machine is the name of the band.
No, the band name
Sound Machine.
Sorry.
He's mixing it up with the Sound Machine.
No, it's wait. What's
no,
the
Why is it
Mind
not?
Machine?
The band name is Mind Fashion.
Mind
Two
Fashion,
words.
I'm sorry.
Mind,
Mind Fashion.
I'm really a solo artist, but it goes under a band name, Mind Fashion.
I just realized the whole time the whole sound machine was on in the background. How does the quality of the sound over here? Okay, leave it alone for now. But so, what's the name of the group?
Sure, it's Mind Fashion.
Mind Fashion on Spotify.
Spotify. You can go to YouTube Music. You can go to Pandora. You can go to.
Is there a video for it on YouTube? Or
There's
is
no
it just...
video. There's just some artwork. It's just first release. I have to get to all that stuff when I have some free time, whenever that
It
is.
was actually really cool. I'm looking up Jesse, getting to know him a little bit on the background. And I'm like, ooh, look at this. Like, what?
Yeah, he was watching a Warrant video earlier, trying to get some ideas, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You know which video I'm talking about?
I know the band Warrant. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which video you mean.
Was it-
Cherry Pie.
Cherry Pie, yeah.
Mine's a,
She's my cherry pie.
mine's a little. I think mine's a little edgier than that. But I know that song.
Jesse McDonald. The company is Modern Insurance. The phone number for Jesse, 203-882-9805. Make sure you call him, reach out to him. He's a great guy. You have a few days left, especially if you need insurance. I mean, you know.
I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can, but we're getting towards the end.
Yeah, it's we definitely have to get you a little more often in here.
Yeah, man.
And
to.
it's
Again,
again
more songs.
Yeah,
Couple more dropping
Maybe we'll
soon.
do a little intro to the music, and before the show starts, we'll play your music.
I'm just surprised Dave hasn't asked to be in on the video somehow. You
I haven't decided.
I'll skate around.
know, like the girls in the Robert Palmer video. You know, the ones that are just standing to the side.
Like a cold
You know what I'm talking
cold
about?
wall banker.
Yeah, yeah. You know.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, okay.
We'll have to talk
Jesse's
about
like,
it.
no, thank you.
Oh man! All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We are at the next part of our show where we give a free tumbler out to one of you lucky guys or girls or people out there who might be interested in a free tumbler. As you know, if you want a free tumbler, go to Facebook, let us know. Go to Instagram, let us know. Say, I want a tumbler. I want to put myself into the drawing. Give us your name, your email address, And we would like actually more than that. We'd like your phone number so we can get in touch with you, because now you, the winner, has to get in touch with us so we can get you that free tumbler. All right, Thane, let's go to that spinning wheel. Good stuff, man.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Are we being heard right?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. Dominic McCory.
Dominic LaCoury. I think that's a realtor, actually. Dominic LaCoury. Dominic LaCoury, congratulations on your free Team Powerhouse tumbler. Please get in touch with us so we can send this out to you. We appreciate the opportunity, and thank you guys every week for joining us. It was a great show.
Yeah,
A lot
happy
of
to be
things,
here. A lot of fun.
a lot of coverage over. There's so many. You know, Eric, you mentioned earlier. There's a lot of different things here in this category.
There's
A lot of nuances, a lot of tentacles.
A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah,
tentacles,
and you know, maybe we'll have some questions people ask us in advance for you next time
Sure,
as well.
sure.
But again, if you watch the show and you watch it later on, please type in there some questions, and Jess will get back to you. We want to thank you so much for being a part of the show again every week. We will see you next week, and that's it. All right.
Sign off.
See you guys all later.
Bye.